Speaking of phones, we're going to find out now what's up with WhatsApp. What is WhatsApp? What is this? Well, it's kind of a serious situation. We've had some issues with this piece of technology, if you will, in regards to or in the wake of some recent terrorist attacks that happened in London. And joining us now for more and to find out more about what's been happening is cybersecurity expert Shawn Tuma. He joins us now on the other end of our line. Good morning, Shawn. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing very well. So for WhatsApp, what is that for those who don't know?
Basically, it's an application that we can use on our phones or over the web to send chats and text messages in a secure format. So it goes through an encrypted channel that can't be intercepted while it's in communication.
And this is something that has a link to as I mentioned in the preamble just a moment ago, the terrorist attacks that happened overseas not too long ago. How does this app fit in with what went on?
What happened is the investigators and the intelligence services in the UK that were looking into this attack and trying to find out who the terrorist had been communicating with discovered that he had used WhatsApp to send messages just a couple of minutes before this event happened. And so they wanted to get into that and see what the communications were, but could not because it is this secure encrypted means of communication.
So these privacy protections, a lot of questions, like you said, surrounding the protections and whether they're strong enough or not. Would the attacks, would they not have happened if these protections were in place, or is that not necessarily the issue? Would that have mattered at all?
Well, that's a great question. I don't know if it would have mattered because that would have required real-time monitoring of his communications to know what he was up to. What they usually are trying to do is find accomplices. So they get the device, and we saw this with the San Bernardino shooter here in the U.S. A year or so ago. They try to get the device, look at the communications, and see the people who were working with them, and then go after them in the hopes of either learning more about it, finding who's behind it, or stopping future terrorist attacks. So it does have a strong emotional tug to say, hey, we need access to this information, and that's why you hear so much about it after events like this. It's a big debate we have going on both in the U.S. and overseas now about the value of encryption versus law enforcement having an ability to get into it when they need to.
What does this mean then for for other apps that is out there? Does this kind of open up a can of worms, if you will? Other technological programs, should these be looked at as well to make sure that privacy protections, safeguard protections are in place and are strong enough and are in full effect?
Yes, it's a huge issue because, as we all know, in this world of cyber attacks and data breaches, one of the most strongly recommended means of avoiding that is through the use of encryption. The government mandates it in some aspects. Certainly with medical records and things like that, it encourages encryption to protect the privacy and security of data. Yet the other hand of that situation is when government investigators and intelligence agencies want access to that information. They want to have back doors into the systems and the channels of communication so they can get what they need. But then the other side of that argument is with the recent WikiLeaks reveal and the Snowden reveal a few years ago, we see that even the government can't keep these things private and secret. So it really just makes quite a mess that I don't think anyone knows the answer to the problem.
Okay, that was kind of my last question before I let you go, but I think you pretty much answered it. And it was what would have to happen for this WhatsApp or other programs what would have to happen for these issues to not happen again that could lead to terrorist attacks. But it sounds like from what you say, that's still a big mystery out there.
It is a big mystery, and it's a game of cat and mouse, really, between the people who are developing these platforms for privacy and security and the wrongdoers who will find the latest, most secure means they can find to use it for nefarious activities, and the government trying to stay one step ahead of them, which for all of our security, it has to continue trying to do. So I don't know the answer to this problem. I wish I did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of other people, too, as well, probably. Cybersecurity expert Shawn Tuma, he's also an attorney who specializes in computer data. Shawn, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.